yesterday on First Take, Chris Canty, Mina Kimes, and Kimberly Martin were all discussing the AFC North. And they started with the Bengals. We all saw the Bengals defense. They had all their starters but 2 in when they played in their last preseason game. And coming off how bad things were last year, their head coach was asked about how he felt about their starting defense. And then Mina Kimes was asked how she felt. And the head coach and Mina were on 2 different wavelengths. And I got to say, I agree with Mina. Here we go.
You're not going to get that from me. I can promise you that.
Hold on, let me rewind that.
We want to go out there and shut down every offense we play in the preseason and score a bunch of points on. But an overreaction to 5 to 10 plays, you're not going to get that from me. I can promise you that.
Mina, after watching Burrow in the Bengals, what's your level of concern for them?
Red alert, 9 out of 10 at least. I'm overreacting because of what you just said, which was this defense was awful last year. It'd be one thing if they looked bad in the preseason, but they were coming off of even an average season. Then we could say, well, they're figuring some stuff out, new coaching staff, new players in the lineup. They were bad, and they still look bad. And I struggle to see a pathway for them to get significantly better. Talk about Trey Hendrickson and the need to pay him and get him on the field. That's fine. Chris, you know this. Trey Hendrickson can't do anything if teams are putting up 6+ yards a clip on them and gashing them on the ground the way that the Washington Commanders did. I mean, the run defense in that game was jarring. Just major issues fitting the run at the first and second level of that defense. Trey Hendrickson isn't fixing that. Maybe young players will develop by the end of the season. I think that's why they went out and got Al Golden from the coaching ranks. But I do not see this defense making significant improvement this year at all.
Ooh, red alert. 9 out of 10. Watching the defense was jarring. And listen, it's a coach's job to say, I'm not going to overreact to 5 or 6 plays. We hear you, coach. But there's also this, as Mina pointed out, there's this that you just can't deny. You're coming off a year with Trey Hendrickson, who you don't have things settled with yet, and you were 25th points per game, 25th yards per game, 21st pass yards per game, 19th rush yards per game. We saw how atrocious it was. Everybody's blaming the defense for wasting, Joe Burrow's career. So how can you not? Yes, it's just a preseason game, but coming off of the back of the regular season, Bobby, would you also agree with Mina, who's usually not prone to hyperbole? Would you also say red alert for the Bengals defense?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Lou Anarumo can't save this team. They let him go, their defensive coordinator. It was only a few years ago, Sarah, that he was looked at as one of the top. Now, he went and got a job immediately afterwards, which tells you what the league thinks about him. He's in Indianapolis now. But I think Zach Taylor's on the hot seat. I mean, there's no this guy has to be on the hot seat with your franchise quarterback in Joe Burrow in the prime of his career and one phase of your team quite literally willing your organization outside of the postseason, and there's nothing that your franchise guy can do about it even after a ridiculously successful statistical season. It's red alert and then some in Cincinnati. Why wouldn't you overreact to this? Or why? It's not even an overreaction. None of this is an overreaction. It's just simple stuff.
Well,
so,
it's like, what evidence is there that it's going to be better from last year? There's no evidence.
What ground do they have to stand on for Zach to get up? And he has to obviously get up at the podium and back his system and back everything they're doing right now in this early. It's not that early. I mean, we're 16 days out from week 1 from a Ravens perspective, but I just don't know what kind of ground do they have to stand on, especially given where they're at right now. They don't even have the reigning sack getter under contract. Yeah, he's under contract, but they don't even have him playing. They're 2 weeks out from regular season football, and Trey Hendrickson, who is their ultimate game wrecker, who has wrecked plenty of plays against the Ravens over the years, totally unresolved on top of what they've shown so far defensively. Oof.
Well, and here's what's interesting is this conversation goes a step further, because I also agree that it's like red alert time for that Bengals defense. Or I guess it's never come off of red alert. It's been in red alert since last season. There's no reason to come off of it. But this is what I really like. This next exchange is interesting because Chris Canty is one of the few national analysts that have been holding Joe Burrow accountable, okay, holding his feet to the fire. So while Chris Canty and Mina agree that it's red alert for the defense, they wanted to make clear that's still not an excuse for Joe Burrow. And here's why. I'm very interested to see if you agree. Here they are.
That there's a quarterback, a player in the NFL that has more pressure on them in terms of what they have to do week to week in order for their team to win than Joe Burrow. But in no way, shape, or form do I feel like the Cincinnati Bengals are doing him a disservice because Joe Burrow was out here caping for his guys to get paid this offseason.
Before Mina jumps in, can I just get Christopher on this one point? Why are we understanding that it's not Micah Parsons' fault, it's not his responsibility to make all the pieces and make all the dollars and cents fit? But yet we're going to be mad at Joe Burrow for saying, hey, you know what? I'm pretty damn good. I'm also pretty damn good because we have two wide receivers that you're saying because Joe Burrow wanted to be GM.
I'm not mad at them paying the wide receivers. I'm pro player all the time. I spent over a decade in the league. I want everybody to get paid their bag. What I'm saying is this. When your team is at the top of the league in percentage of cap spent on the offensive side of the ball, the defense being an impediment to your team getting to where you're going cannot be an excuse. I
actually find myself agreeing with Chris. I mean, the point he's making there about Joe Burrow. Look, we're not saying that, no, actually, Joe Burrow is the GM of the Bengals and he is completely responsible for the construction of this roster and how it's built. However, I feel like too often I see people on this program and others talking out of both sides of their mouth, saying Joe Burrow has the best 1-2 punch at receiver in the entire NFL. What a group of weapons. But oh my God, that defense, he is so put upon. You can't really have it both ways there. This was a decision that they made as a franchise. And yes, it is incumbent upon the team to do a better job of drafting and developing, no doubt. But the offense is stacked. That is not an excuse.
They both said the defense is not an excuse. And why? Because you have spent so much money on the offense. You can't have it both ways. Like you can't say, and Joe Burrow had all the right in the world. I totally get why he'd go to the front office and say, keep both of my wide receivers. That's his prerogative. As a quarterback, that's what you want. But when you demand that, you also put on your shoulders the responsibility to overcome a defense that isn't being paid a lot. And of course, like Mina said, the front office needs to draft better. They can do that, but it's not. I guess I'll put it this way, Bobby. With the amount of money they're spending on the wide receivers, for a quarterback, is it better to have an average receiving core and an average defense, or you have sensational best in the NFL wide receivers and one of the worst defenses? Okay. Lamar last year had, average receiving core. And for the first 10 weeks, one of the worst defenses in the league, plus Justin Tucker messing things up left and right. Okay. Or maybe just left. I don't remember where they went. Just the same. And so it's like, but for Lamar, there was no excuses. And for Joe, there was. And it's like, to Mina's point, you can't have it both ways. You have the best wide receivers in the entire NFL. That's where your money's going. So it has to come from somewhere. So would you rather have average receivers and maybe now you bring up your defense to where it might be average? Or do you want spectacular receivers and then you take the responsibility on and say, okay, I will win these games? You can't have it both ways.
Yeah. And the latter of those, they weren't able to overcome that last year. He just wasn't able to. So I think you want the former of those two options that you're laying out there. And when you look at the Bengals schedule coming up to kickstart 2025, knowing that this has been a team perpetually who struggles early on, a little bit of a cakewalk to begin the first couple weeks. At Cleveland, home against Jacksonville. They then go to Minnesota. Of course, the post-Sam Darnold era after one season is on. J.J. McCarthy will be their starter. Then you go at Denver, week 4. Lions, that's home. At Green Bay, and then it starts to – they're not going to see the Ravens until twice within 3 weeks. Look at that. That's going to get really interesting on the back end there. Weeks 13, weeks 15 at Ravens, then home against the Ravens. So,
yeah, so I think with that schedule, they should be able to overcome their past issues of starting slow. They should. We'll see if they do. Yeah. Here's where it's interesting. One last part from First Take that I pulled. As bad as things are on defense for the Bengals, as panicky as you want to be, when the panel was asked, well, who has more questions? Both Chris Canty and Mina said, well, it's still the Steelers, because we know who the Bengals are. Great offense, terrible defense. But as bad as the defense is, they do have that sensational offense, so no excuses. So they say it's the Steelers who still have more questions.
I think it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it ain't that close. It's because I don't believe in the quarterback. I just don't. They've pinned the regression of Aaron Rodgers on injuries that he suffered over the last 3 years. Whether it's injuries or whether it's age, it doesn't really matter. And here's the thing, as players get older, they don't get healthier. So I don't understand why everybody is falling into the hoax that is Aaron Rodgers year over year. Having experience don't mean a damn thing if you physically can't go out there and do the job.
Well, he was a bottom 5 quarterback last year statistically, and I know folks say, did you watch him at the end of the season? I did watch him, and I believe he was a below average quarterback. And to Chris's point, I do agree. I don't see that getting better with age. I keep seeing people pull like Aaron Rodgers' career numbers. I'm sorry, you can't talk about NFL players that way at that age. Like, his numbers in before 2020 are simply not pertinent to the player that we see right now. This run game has to be quite good behind offensive line with questions at tackle for me to feel good about this offense. And I also have questions about the defense, by the way. They have a giant Baltimore Ravens problem, in case anyone who missed last season. That has to get better as well. So I think there's more questions about the Steelers, because with the Bengals, I don't have any questions. I know the offense is great and the defense is terrible.
I mean, we could be talking about the Steelers being in the territory of having the first losing season in the Mike Tomlin era, the first losing season that they've had in his 18 years of being the head coach.
Okay. A couple things that there were some big statements said there. I want to react to 3 of them. There was Mina saying she didn't feel like the Steelers defense was that good, because she says if you didn't watch last season, you wouldn't know that the Steelers defense have a Ravens problem. So there's that. There's Chris Canty calling Aaron Rodgers a hoax over the last couple years, all the hope that they put in there. And then finally, Chris Canty saying it could be the first losing season this year under Mike Tomlin. Take one of the 3. Which one do you want to start with?
The latter. The latter of those 3, because I think that conversation's been had this time of year for the last 5 years, and it hasn't happened.
Losing season.
Yes, yeah. It hasn't happened. That conversation has been recycled this time of year, every year for the last 5+ years in Pittsburgh. I'm not. Look, I'm just calling it as I see it in terms of, I can remember the last several years that's been the case. We're talking about a team that went 10-7 last year. Justin Fields had the starter position while Russ was nursing, I can't remember what it was, a calf maybe. For the first 6 weeks, they were 4-2. They finished 10-7. They hand the keys to Russell Wilson. Obviously, we know where he is now, in a very packed Giants quarterback room, who, by the way, Jackson Dart's been looking really good. I'll be curious to monitor that if Russ ever goes down this year. Jameis Winston's in that room, as well as Tommy Cutlets. Tommy DeVito is in that room, and he put out some good
Browns.
Tape. Sarah, he put out some good tape yesterday. You watch. He might get a primary backup job at some point around the league, because I don't think they're going to keep 4 quarterbacks, and they're not going to stash him on the practice squad because of how many reps he's got in terms of the starter reps that he's gotten so far to begin his career in New York. I can't convince myself that this is a Pittsburgh team that they absolutely have a Ravens problem. There's no doubt. I agree with that. No, I mean, how can you not think that after what we watched last year and how the Ravens got better? So they have a Ravens problem, but I still think they're going to scrap their way into that 9-8, 10-7, right around there, and flirt with a wild card in the AFC. As far as Aaron Rodgers is concerned, yeah, he's not getting any younger, but at the same time, I think you look at last year, knowing that he was a year removed from an Achilles tear at 39 years old, and you saw a player that got more healthy along the way. Is he getting more spry? No. And that offensive line might be the biggest question of everything because he's not mobile and never really has been throughout his career. He's a traditional pocket passer and a darn good one at that. So I can't get behind a conversation, Sarah, that I've heard for the last 5+ years, knowing that they've proven that conversation wrong and Chris's point wrong every single year for as long as Mike Tomlin's been there.
So I agree with you on one of the 3 points. But we'll start where we agree. I agree that the Steelers will probably be above 500 again. I don't see them having a losing season because, to your point, everybody keeps saying that and then it doesn't happen. Somehow they will their way. I think they're just too solid of an organization. So I agree with you there. I wish I could agree with you. I want to agree with you. My heart, my desire for the Ravens to sweep the Steelers wants to agree with you, but I'm not ready yet to say that the Steelers have a Ravens problem. I know that the last 2 games were not good for the Steelers, but there were so many games and years before that like I remember last year, especially after the first Steelers game, where the offense again didn't perform well, partially because of turnovers, that we were discussing, like, is Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, ever going to be able to overcome the Steelers? And it was like a big talking point that because it spanned several years where the Ravens weren't able to overcome the Steelers. So 2 games, as convincing as they were last year, doesn't erase all those other games for me. But if they were to do it again, it will.
But wait a second, though. But remember how little Lamar had actually been featured
we
in
pointed
those
that
games?
out. We pointed that out. Yeah, we pointed that out
at the time. Yeah.
But we even took those games out where Lamar wasn't playing, and it still wasn't great.
Oh, it wasn't
You know
great
what
at
I
all.
mean?
And easily, far and away, aside from Kansas City, nobody's played him tougher over the last 7 seasons. Nobody's played Lamar tougher than Pittsburgh. We know that. Don't ask Cincinnati how they've played Lamar over the last 7 seasons, even with Joe Burrow out there. But I don't know if we disagree that much on point 2.
Well, you just said I agree. How could you deny that it's like that they don't have a Ravens problem? So I just showed how you could.
But we still think we still both agree they're gonna split the season series. I just think when they line up in January, Steelers don't have enough answers for what the Ravens can deploy. They just don't.
Right, which is why, because we both agree that it's going to be split, that's why I don't call it a Ravens problem for the Steelers. I think when it comes to division games, a lot of it comes down to coaching. Because Tomlin and Harbaugh have been going back and forth for years. They're the 2 longest tenured NFL coaches currently, right? They're the top 2. I know Tomlin's
it's Mike
number 1.
John. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like because they know each other so well, that I feel like John and the Ravens finally got the leg up and knew how to use Lamar and Henry against them. But for so many years, I felt like Tomlin had a leg up over John. And so I'm not ready to say that like John now has Tomlin figured out and Tomlin's not going to be able to come back with something. So to me, you said, how could you deny it? But yet, yes, we're both saying they're probably going to split because it's the Ravens and Steelers.
Yes. When it matters most, though, in January, I think to me it's about horsepower, and the Ravens just.
Yes. I mean, if they meet January again, will the Steelers be there? Like, if I agree that they'll probably be above 500, but will they face off again? I don't know.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. But as far as the fluky stuff, the classic Ravens-Steelers rivalry, the low scoring, the one-score games, all that, I still think that's going to absolutely be the case in at least one, if not both, of the regular season games. When push comes to shove and there's a postseason on the line and it's do or die, I just think it comes down to horsepower. I get it. The coaching is more involved, I think, in the regular season games. You have that familiarity. You have that tape. You have that understanding of one another. So that's where I'm at there. Why don't you go to point 3 now?
Then it's just whether, like, he called it's been an Aaron Rodgers hoax over the last several years. And, like, that is what it was because, you know, the New York Jets had so much hope and so much optimism. Obviously, the first year he had his injury. Second year, he was able to stay more on the field, but wasn't much better. And to their point, I just don't see how he's getting better. I mean, I guess the standard is low, but to the point where, you know, you should, like, have hope again and all that kind of stuff like they had in New York. I'm not there with it. And I think you and I, for months, have been on different pages on that. I think you believe in Aaron more than I do.
Yeah, I believe what's around him, too. Now, the offensive line, obviously, is something that's going to have to be watched. But DK Metcalf is one of the top wide receivers in the game and a total specimen. I don't know how the Ravens are going to combat him. Yes, there's questions after that. Pickens is no longer there, and it's not the deepest wide receiver room ever, but they'll have a serviceable ground game. They always do. They're going to have a dialed-in defense. You already know that. T.J. Watt was paid ridiculously handsomely. They went and made splash moves. Now, whether or not those splash moves and acquisitions on paper right now, they look good, they look splashy. Will that pay dividends for them this upcoming season? We'll have to see. It's hard for me to evaluate what Aaron did in New York, given the dysfunction, given the coach carousel, given the GM firing. Everything was going on there. It was a circus. He's 39 years old. He tears his Achilles a couple snaps into his tenure in New York. I continue to kind of sit on this erring a side of caution to complete. I mean, you're not writing him off by any stretch, but those that are writing him off, like a Chris Canty, that refer to him as a hoax, I can't allow myself to go there, because this is a dude that still feels like he has nothing left to prove out there. Think about it. He could walk into Canton tomorrow. He's got absolutely nothing left to prove. And yet he's going to turn 42 this season, and he still wants to play football. I just feel like he's got an edge to him. He's got a chip on his shoulder, and look out when he's playing with house money. He signed for $13 million or something? I think it was $13 million 1 year in Pittsburgh. He's got absolutely nothing to lose. That would scare me if not a Ravens fan, because I think they're, like I already said the Ravens are going to take care of him, right? I already said that. So it shouldn't scare the Ravens. Right. I just think it should scare those that are saying, come on, there's nothing to see here.
I agree with what you just said, that Aaron has a better organization and team around him in Pittsburgh than he did in the New York Jets. But let's just make clear, the way you just built up Aaron, you were talking about everything around Aaron, not Aaron himself. And therein lies the problem.
Well,
to build him up, you had to talk about that he's going to have a better team.
But he wasn't able to overcome that in New York. And a lot of that was due to the health side of things.
Right.
And the dysfunction around him. Now he
and
has what he had
and
in Green Bay in a sense. And the age is absolutely part of it. Look, I can't sit here and tell you that I guarantee that he'll be healthy all season long. That's a major question mark.
Mm-hmm.
But should he stay protected, he's got the framework around him that he hasn't had since Green Bay.